After a truck accident, it's easy to feel powerless, like the company's got the money, the lawyers, and the upper hand. But what most people don't realize is that these companies can absolutely be held accountable if you know where to look and how to apply pressure. I'm Mama Justice, a personal injury attorney here in Mississippi, and I've spent decades helping people go after the companies behind these crashes, not just the drivers. In this video, I'll walk you through 3 legal strategies that can force those companies to pay, not offer, pay what they owe. Because when you understand the rules they've broken, you can stop playing defense and start building a case that puts the pressure right back on them. Let's start with the first and often the most straightforward way a company can be forced to pay you after a truck accident in Mississippi. That's by proving the driver was working for the company when the crash occurred. Now, in Mississippi, there's something called vicarious liability. It just means that if an employee messes up during work, the company they work for can be held responsible. Imagine a truck driver making a delivery for a big shipping company, and while they're on the clock, let's say between Jackson and Hattiesburg, they run a red light and hit your car. Even if it was the driver who made the mistake, the company can be forced to pay your injuries and damages because the driver was on company time. I've seen cases just like this too. Not too long ago, we had a client who was rear-ended by a delivery truck on I-55. The driver admitted he was rushing to meet a deadline. He was in a company's branded truck, wearing their uniform, and he had just checked in with his dispatcher. In a situation like that, we show the insurance company or the court, if we have to, all the proof, the work logs, GPS tracking, company policies. When the facts show the driver was working for the business, Mississippi law says the company must step up and pay. You might be wondering, what if the driver says they were off duty? Well, the truth matters here. If they were running personal errands with no connection to work, it gets trickier. But if they were doing anything remotely related to the job, making deliveries, picking up supplies, even stopping for lunch along their route, we dig into the details. We look at the logbooks, receipts, fuel cards, and sometimes even cell phone records to prove the connection. One common trick companies try is claiming their driver was an independent contractor and not a real employee. But here's the thing. Courts in Mississippi look at control. If the company sets the driver's schedule, told them where to go, gave them a company truck, and directed their routes and how those should be handled, they're likely responsible. The bottom line, when you're hurt by a truck and the driver was clearly on the job, the company can be required to pay your medical bills, lost wages, and your pain and suffering. That's the first way. And in many cases, it's the most direct path to getting you the compensation you deserve. Now, let's talk about the second way, proving the company itself was negligent, not just the driver. This is huge in a lot of Mississippi cases. Sometimes it's not just about what the driver did wrong, it's about what the company failed to do. Let's say you're on Highway 49 and a big rig jackknife causing a pileup. Turns out the brakes failed. That's not just a freak accident. We dig in and find out the company skipped regular maintenance checks, ignored warning signs, or used cheap, worn-out parts. In these cases, the company can and should be made to pay. Mississippi law requires trucking companies to keep their vehicles safe. That means regular inspections, fixing worn-out tires, working lights, brakes that actually stop a heavy truck, and keeping careful records of it all. If we find out they skipped those checks or faked their logs, that's strong evidence of negligence. Let me tell you about a real case. A family from Tupelo was hit by an 18-wheeler whose brakes were completely shot. We sent a legal notice right after the crash demanding the truck be preserved for inspection. Our expert found 5 separate brake violations that should have taken that truck off the road. The company's maintenance records were a mess. We put all that in front of the insurance company. Their tune changed. They knew a jury would see right through their excuses. That family got a settlement that paid for hospital bills, rehab, and much, much more. Negligence isn't just about bad maintenance. Sometimes it's about hiring and training. If a company hires a driver with a record of DUI or reckless driving, or puts someone behind the wheel with improper training, that's on them. Imagine you're driving to Biloxi for a weekend trip and a truck sideswipes you on the interstate. Later, you learn the company never checked the driver's background. Maybe they even skipped a required drug test. That's not just sloppy, that's dangerous, and it puts all of us at risk. We also look closely at how companies set work schedules. Legally, drivers in Mississippi must follow hours of service rules. There are strict limits on how long truckers can drive without a break. If the company pressures their drivers to keep going, fudge logbooks, or skip rest stops, that's a recipe for disaster. If an exhausted driver causes a crash because the company pushed them too hard, the company is on the hook. So, to recap the second point, even if the driver makes a mistake, if the company's own bad decision, like cutting corners on safety, sloppy hiring, or dangerous schedules, contributed to your injury, they can be forced to pay. That's often where we find the strongest leverage for our clients. The third way companies can be forced to pay you after a truck accident in Mississippi, through their insurer and making sure the insurance company can't wiggle out of their duty to pay. Trucking companies in Mississippi are required by law to carry a significant insurance. It's not like just your regular car policy. For those big trucks, federal rules say companies must carry at least $750,000 in coverage, and often a lot more. But here's the catch. Insurance companies are not eager to write big checks. They'll use every trick in the book to deny, delay, or limit your claim. Here's how we tackle this. First, we look down the policy. That means sending letters right away, demanding all insurance information, not just for the truck, but for the trailer, the cargo, and sometimes the company's entire fleet. Sometimes there's multiple policies that can apply, and one company might have several layers of coverage. A lot of people don't realize this, but trucking companies sometimes lease drivers and equipment. So there might be insurance on the truck, the driver, the cargo, the company, or even a broker. We look at every angle to see who's responsible and make sure no one slips away. Let me share, for example. We had a case where our client was rear-ended by a moving van just outside of Meridian. The trucking company's insurance company claimed the driver wasn't on the clock, and the driver's own policy said the truck was too big to qualify. When we dug deeper, we discovered there was a third policy for the cargo company. We got all three insurers at the table. Guess what? Suddenly, everyone wanted to pay their share to avoid going to court. Sometimes these insurance companies will argue that your injuries aren't that serious or that you share some of the blame for the crash. Under Mississippi's pure comparative negligence rule, even if you're partly at fault, you can still recover money, but it might be reduced. The key is gathering strong evidence, eyewitness statements, dash cam footage, accident reconstructions, medical records, and expert opinions. Don't forget about uninsured or underinsured coverage. If the company doesn't have enough insurance or if the policy's full of loopholes, your own policy might pick up some of the slack. There's another reason you need a lawyer to help you at every angle. The main thing to remember here is that insurance companies are in the business to make money, not pay claims. They are good at what they do. That's why having a lawyer who knows how to push back, present solid evidence, and negotiate tough is absolutely critical. Here in Mississippi, roads are full of big trucks. From I-10 down the Gulf Coast to I-20 and I-55 running north and south, every day accidents happen. The trucking companies are large, well-funded, and have teams of lawyers on their side. Many people who try to go it alone with these companies end up with medical bills, missed work, and not fair compensation. Don't let that be you. I've spent years helping people across Mississippi stand up to these insurance companies after a crash. I sat across the table from folks just like you, worried about how to pay the hospital bill, how to get their car fixed, how to get their life back on track. The good news is you don't have to go it alone, and you absolutely don't have to accept a lowball offer. When you know these three paths to holding insurance companies accountable, proving the driver was working, proving the company was negligent, and using all available insurance, you've got real power. Before we wrap up, let's review. We talked about the three main ways insurance companies can be legally forced to pay you after a truck accident in Mississippi. First, proving the driver was actually working for the company. 2, proving the company was negligent in hiring, training, or maintenance. And 3, using the company's insurance coverage and making sure it applies in your case. If you've been hit by a truck, you need to know your rights and act fast to protect them. evidence disappears quickly, and the other side is already working on their defense. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, don't hesitate to call a professional who's fought these battles before. But don't stop here. The next thing you need to know is just as important. How much is my car crash claim worth? In our next video, I'm breaking down the factors that make up your claim, what can increase its value, and the biggest mistake people make that lower their settlements. If you want to make sure you're not leaving money on the table, check out the next video right now. See you over there.